Dr. Jazz.
I've listened to your music for a long time, you know. You've been really productive for the last 20 years, almost a little bit less, but yeah. But I'll just jump in and ask you. You wrote to me that you just recorded a new album with Kim Cass and Bill Stewart, and
Right.
I'm really curious about that one. You know, I know you did background music. I love that one, which is like a trio, saxophone format. And
That record is funny. That record, we recorded it in 2010. That was with Rob Garcia, drummer, and Masa Kamaguchi,
yeah.
bass player. And it was like part of a tour. We kind of treated it as a gig, just going through Barcelona for Fresh Sound. And just some of the tunes we were playing on the tour. We recorded that day, and then I kind of forgot about it. And then 5 years later, in 2015, somebody called me and they said, like, "Hey, I heard you have a new record. It's nice, you know." And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what record?" And it was that background music. And I had emailed Jordy, who runs Fresh Sound, and I didn't hear back, and I just said, "Whatever, I'll just." So I bought one on eBay just to hear it, you know. And it doesn't really sound like it. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. So anyway, yeah, we did that one. That's technically not my record. It was just a collaborative thing, you know.
Okay. Yeah, but the format, it's like without piano or guitar. So I'm really curious also about this one now because, it's no harmonic instrument. And, how do you see this tradition of, there's like Sonny Rollins and, the Joe Henderson Trio records and so many others, but like, do you like this format without a harmonic instrument? And how did you approach the new one? I mean, like,
yeah, I mean, I like all the formats. There's not one that I like more than the others.
Yeah.
I think that they all present different ways to play with different people. And so for this one, it's sort of evolved. I had a group for a few years with Ian Froman, drummer, and Kim, bassist, and Jason Palmer, trumpet player. And so that was like a two-horn front line with no chords. And we did a bunch of records and tours, and that sort of evolved into this thing that I had, which was a trio with Dan Weiss and Kim. And so we had a few gigs together just to kind of try out the group. And I liked it, so I ended up adding Jason to some stuff. And we did some touring, which was fun.
Yeah.
Went to Europe a couple times. And then after that, Jason became unavailable. He moved away for a little bit. And then I had a tour, so I called Max Light. He's a really fantastic guitarist.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah.
And that sort of just evolved into this newest band that I have. We did a tour, I guess, in what year are we in? 2022.
Yeah, exactly.
I think maybe a year and a half ago, whatever it was, a couple years ago.
Pre-COVID, yeah.
One of these no, it was during COVID,
Oh
actually.
shit. Okay.
We went to Europe, I guess it was almost 2 years ago, something like that. It was in the fall or winter. And I had all this new music that I had written. Prior to that tour, Jerry Teakins, who owned Crisscross, had died. But before he died, he told me that he wanted me to do a trio record with Bill. And so I guess he had mentioned that to his son. And his son, also named Jerry, asked me if I wanted to do a trio record with Bill Stewart. And I said, of course, I would love to, especially because your father had suggested it. So I ended up using the same music that we did on that quartet tour with Dan Weiss and Max Light and Kim for this trio, because we recorded the week I got back from that tour, actually. So it was actually very strange, this record, because I had just played all of this music on the road with Dan Weiss and Max Light and Kim, which is like a really strong unit with strong personalities, and it was a blast. And then like I turned around when I got back and did this trio thing with the same exact music with Bill and Kim. So I don't know
Mm,
if I would have done it like this had I thought it through a little better. I would have really loved to record this music with the quartet I've been working with and
sure.
touring with.
Yeah.
And I've had the thought maybe I'll actually record this music again with those guys. But so that's kind of how it evolved into this trio record with Bill. I'm really happy with it. It's Kim is a freak, as
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody knows.
Sure. Yeah.
And I write specifically for Kim because I know that he's able to do things that a lot of bass players can't, and it's tremendous to work with him. So that's kind of how that record evolved.
Mm. What about Bill? How did he approach your music? I mean, he's like one of the greats of his generation, or
Yeah. How did he approach my music? I don't know, like a pro,
That's a good
like
answer.
like anybody else would.
Oh,
Who's
sure. Okay.
I don't know.
Sure.
He checked it out. We had a very very brief rehearse. I really
Yeah.
don't
Like,
like. I'm not a fan of rehearsing.
okay.
Uh, but I figured this music's a little difficult, and I just figured Bill would want to maybe play it once before we hit. And also, I like to kind of record quickly in the studio. Like I don't like to sit around all day, like
Oh,
10
sure.
hours or whatever, or multiple days. I like to just like get in, get out, first, second take. That's it.
2 hours. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, maybe not 2 hours, but
No, no,
maybe
sure.
4.5 hours, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was cool. Bill sounded amazing. It was a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
he's a
Yeah.
very nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to ask you about drummers. When you wrote you're gonna play with Bill, and you've been playing with Dan Weiss and Billy Hart, Rudy Royston, I don't know, Matt Wilson, Ted Poor, like just the list goes on of these incredible drummers. And how important are the drums for you? I mean, must be really important. I mean, I know your music is like highly rhythmical, lots of unisono lines or angular or whatever. But like, how did you decide when you played with certain drummers, and how important are the drums actually for you? Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, just as important, I guess, as maybe anything else. Although, I mean,
mm,
they're sort of the fire behind everybody.
yeah,
I mean, for me, like everybody that I like to play with is on such a high level. And there's so many people who are play on such a high level. It's sort of who works well together. I don't know. Do you watch Bill Maher at all?
yeah, sure, man.
So, did you watch that Winton interview that was from the other night, 2 nights
No,
ago?
no, no, no.
He had Winton on his show.
Really, I have to check it out. Wow, okay.
I think it's the second or third time Winton's been on a show. And they were talking about, music relating to politics and that sort of thing. And but Winton was relating the rhythm section uh, to our government, saying like the drummer is like our president, and like the bass player is like the judicial branch or whatever, and
Okay.
the pianist or the guitar player is like the legislative branch, and so on. And like if one's not working, the whole thing is fucked up, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
And so and everybody's kind of working together, and so yeah, I mean drums are like are the fire beneath everybody, but I value everybody equally, I
Oh,
think,
sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's a team play anyway. It's like
Yeah, I mean, I have things that I look for depending on the situation.
yeah,
For this particular music, I like people who throw down and people who don't step all over me and everybody else, who are conscious of what's happening, obviously have amazing intuition, and are creative and open to whatever, My music can be very open
yeah.
in terms of like, I don't give a lot of direction. Um, and so just playing with people who are into that style of collaborating on the bandstand
Yeah.
is important to me. So people I play with don't have huge egos. They're cool to hang with. Like everybody you just named is a joy to be around, fun to travel with. all good people. So to me, that's important. Like,
Oh
there's
man,
no
yeah,
money in any of this, so like, I don't want to stress out playing with annoying people or people I can't rely on. I want to make sure that when I do play, like it's meaningful and I'm having a good time, you know.
yeah, yeah. It's so nicely what you said.
So
Yeah, it's like being on the road for 2 weeks or something. With it can be, yeah, with the wrong people, it can be bad, even if they're amazing musicians. Yeah. So
absolutely,
yeah. So the new one is
yeah.
for Crisscross, right? And uh, but you did also a couple of records on your own, and I wanted to ask you about, nowadays, so many of us, I did many records for labels, and but lately I've been doing it on my own, and many musicians also. Like, what's your view on this nowadays? I mean, is it better to do it on your own or with a label? I mean, of course, if you got, like, I don't know, a Blue Note deal or whatever that they pay for the studio, or I guess, yeah. But like, what is your
It
view on
depends
this?
on your situation.
Mm,
Yeah, it depends on your situation and what you're looking for. To be realistic, like nobody's making any money. Even
sure.
Blue Note's not making any
Oh, sure.
money. I mean, I don't know their financial situation. I
Sure, sure.
shouldn't assume speculate, but I'm assuming that they're not selling very many jazz records. And so, since nobody's making any money, it's sort of insane to be doing this at all. But I think we're past the point of like having a record be like an expensive business card. I mean,
Yeah.
when people get gigs, like they don't even care about press. I mean, they want to know that you get people to come to your show, and so they want to know that you have a track record of getting people to come to your concerts.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, it's really hard to get started, especially today, because you have to already have some sort of reputation for them to know you can get people to come. It's a tough business,
Oh, sure.
regardless of where you are in your life or in your career. Um, but the importance of recording, I mean, I just make records because I like doing it, and if a record label says they're going to pay for it, then that's awesome. I have no uh, expectations of selling my music, and people buy it. That's awesome. If they don't buy it, I really don't care anymore. I do it
Mm,
for me. I do it to document what I'm doing, and I love the recording process. So, so that's why I do it. And so I've recorded for a lot of record labels.
yeah.
Um, Chris Cross has always been awesome with me. They treat musicians really well. That family is really special. Nouvelle Records is a vinyl record label. I'm buddies with the guy who owns it. He
Yeah.
lives up here near Boston also. His name's Alon. He's a great person. He's a player too, and they treat musicians really well, and they also really care about their final product, which is why it's expensive
Yeah. Sure.
to buy. But labels like that, and even Steeplechase, they've been making records for a long time and paying for them
Yeah.
in some way. I mean, he's not making money
Yeah. And
these
yeah.
days
Yes.
recording
Yeah.
people. I
Sure.
mean, maybe he's making a little bit of bread like from Jack and McLean records or Warren records or Dexter Gordon records or something. But starting in the 90s, I'm sure he's not making a hell of a lot of bread from the stuff that he's been recording over the past 35 years.
Yeah.
So he's doing it because he's a fan. A lot of these record label owners are just giant ass fans of
Yeah.
jazz.
Yeah. True.
Like Jerry Teakins uses pension money from his day gig to pay for his record label.
I didn't know
He
that.
didn't make
Wow.
any money on his record label. Yeah, he used his pension bread to pay
Oh man.
for cats he loved to hear. And so he could go to New York and like spend the day hanging with people and getting to know musicians, and like he just loved the community and wanted to support it.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to record for people like that, and it's a bonus that they pay for it or give you some bread or pay for publicity or whatever.
Yeah. That's very rare nowadays. Yeah. I remember it. Like you mentioned Jordy, Fresh Sound. Like I did 2 records for him, like in 2004 or 5, and they actually paid for everything, for the musicians, really good fees, and the studio and all of it. And I was like, man, that's, you know, if that's how the business works, this is beautiful. But and the reality strikes like, shit, okay, it was a rare occasion, how when actually.
Yeah, well, Jordy is one of the few that does pay and treats musicians well, and he's not going to make you a millionaire. None of these labels will, and
sure.
You won't being a musician, just being a player. But sure. He does the best that he can do, within the within what's happening in the world with music. So
man, sure, yeah,
whatever. Jordy's a saint, and the Teakins, they're saints.
All these guys, yeah,
they're all
yeah.
They're all great. All these guys, people, musicians like to bitch, like, oh, this person doesn't give me shit for money, and like, yeah, it sucks, but like, it's not their fault. Like, they got to make a living too and do what they can, and they're sticking their neck out and taking a risk on people, and they're doing like they want your music to sell too, so it's just a shitty business to be in.
So, yes. No, it's true. It's like, but we do it like what you said, like to document where you are and document your bands and your music. And it's, I teach to be able to do some of that stuff, and many of us do, or do some other stuff, that you can document even in this business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to ask, you mentioned some players like Jackie McLean or Dexter Gordon, but who for you specifically was it, like, I don't know, early 2000s, I guess, like, or even earlier, that made you decide actually to go this path where you're now? You remembered like the first records or jazz impros or whatever that's kind of touched you? Or
I didn't have like that moment that some people talk about, like I heard my favorite things and I knew I wanted to be a saxophone player. I just, like, I grew up kind of I grew up in the woods, and I was a little bit of a loner, like in elementary school, when I started picking up the saxophone. And my parents are big music enthusiasts, and so they listened to lots of different music, but also jazz. And so they were big fans of like Joshua Redman at the time. I think he had just got a big signing bonus with like Warner Brothers or something. He was all over the place. And I saw Michael Brecker a lot, and
wow, really?
So that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I grew up listening to Train and Sonny Rollins, and all the people. And so there weren't particular people that like really I latched on to, and I decided because of that to be a saxophonist. I just like got obsessed with playing saxophone. I loved playing saxophone. I like skiing. I like playing golf and playing baseball, and just doing my thing, riding my bike.
Oh, sure.
And then I got into high school, and I got better at it, and just said, okay, let's try this, So, there's no grand story or anything cool like that. Just got into it.
Well, I mentioned, like, in high school, you somehow connected with Liebman, or what was that? Or did I misread somewhere? Or
yeah, I went to this really cool public high school in Connecticut called Hall High School, and it's the same high school that some other tremendous players have gone to. Like Brad Meldau went there. A tenor player named Drew Sayers, and another tenor player named Joel Fromm, and drummer named Richie Barche. There's been some really amazing players, a lot of them actually, who have gone there. It's just a regular public high school, but they really value the arts in that town. And so the band director over there, and I also had amazing private teachers just growing up, starting with my elementary school teacher. He was really supportive, and he made the shit fun for us. I mean, it's always got to be fun doing this shit.
Oh, sure.
So I had a teacher growing up named Larry DeVoren, who also taught like Joel Fromm and some of these other people. And he's a lawyer, but he's just a great teacher and an inspiring person. And so anyway, in high school, I got hooked up with Liebman. It was right before high school. I was 12,
Oh wow.
and I
Okay.
did like one of his master classes, like saxophone clinics at his house in Pennsylvania, for a week, and that's where I met him. Then I started studying with him, and he would have me. We would basically get on the phone and have a lesson,
Mm.
um, and then he would give me some shit to work on for like maybe a month or so, and I would do it, and then I would mail it to him, like snail mail it to him, and then he would call me like a
Man.
couple weeks after that, and we would talk about it on the phone. And then maybe I went to his house every now and then, and we hung out for the day, that kind of stuff. And I did that for I guess like 4 or 5 years,
Oh wow,
off and
really?
on with
Oh
him.
wow. Okay.
Uh, yeah, and just had the opportunity. I mean, I was really fortunate. I got living in like northern Connecticut, where I grew up, kind of on the Massachusetts New York border.
Mm. Yeah.
I was close to New York City, so like I came down and took some lessons with Rick Margitza, who's a tenor
Really?
player I really
Yeah, yeah,
love,
sure. He's in Paris now, right? Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and some other people. So I got to kind of firsthand experience their sounds and their advice on what to work on or whatever.
Yes.
So yeah,
Interesting. You mentioned the vicinity of New York, and how was it for you? Like when you start making the connections to New York, actually, and the first gigs, and this entering the scene. You remember that? I mean, what were the
yeah.
first connections you made, actually? And
Well, before that, when I was in high school, there were only a couple school. Like I wanted to go to music school because that's what people said you should do, in the early 2000s. So I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll go to music school. And so there were a couple I wanted to go to, but there was really only one I wanted to go to, which was New England Conservatory at the time.
oh yeah,
It's just that school spoke to me more than the
yeah,
others in terms of like the teachers there. You had Steve Lacy and Garzone and Berganzi and Alan Chase and some other really cool Bob Moses.
sure,
Some really great people there, and so just the freedom at that school it just kind of it set itself aside from some of the other colleges. And so I applied, and I really didn't want to live in New York City.
mm.
And even when I lived in New York City for years, I really didn't want to live in New York City. Just that
Sure,
place is the fucking bane of my existence. So, so I decided to go to NEC in Boston. So I lived there for 4 years. And the day I graduated, I got the hell out of there and moved to New York. And while I was at NEC, I became close with John McNeil as a trumpeter.
yeah.
And he kind of helped guide me through my first record, and introduced me to some of the players that I ended up calling for that recording.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I met Ted Poor and Ben Monder and John Hebert and Russ Johnson. Um, and so I wrote music for that group, and I
That
recorded that when I was like 20. I think I was a junior, something like that.
Dry Bridge
Released
Road,
it,
right? That one.
Drivers Road, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like I moved to New York right after like the day I graduated in that May or June or something that year. Um, and I got like amazing press, and I was like a press darling for like a second, and that was cool for a second, and I quickly understood like this is a short-lived thing, and everybody kind of, or a lot of people get their 2 seconds of the spotlight, and it does absolutely nothing.
Sure.
Well, not absolutely nothing, but it can help in certain ways, but in the grand scheme of things, it really isn't that important.
Yeah.
And I remember this is an embarrassing story, but it's fucking hilarious, and I think that it's kind of like an interesting thing for people to hear. Is like I remember I moved to New York City on a Saturday,
Okay.
and the next day on that Sunday, I had a feature in the New York Times about Dry Bridge Road,
Mm.
and which it was just really lucky that I got that. And I remember I moved into near Park Slope area in Brooklyn. I was in South Slope. I was on 16th and Prospect Park Southwest, right on the corner. Um, and I remember Sunday morning, like this article came out in the Times, and I remember I was like, I just moved in the day before, and then that Sunday morning, I was like, man, I'm gonna go get some breakfast. So I walked into Park Slope, and there's a diner. I don't know if it's still there on like 9th Street and 7th Avenue, around there. And I remember like thinking on my walk, I'm gonna walk into this diner, and people are gonna be like, hey, that's the guy on the art section, you know, like totally delusional 20-year-old, you know. And obviously it's total bullshit. And so I just thought that was hilarious. Like nobody gives a shit, you know, like nobody's gonna remember today what was in the paper yesterday, you know. So anyway, so I had this record that got like a second of some press, and then I had a gig at the Jazz Standard with my band, and so anyway, meeting those guys, I became good friends with Monder, for example, and like we would go and hang, and for a number of years we played together, toured together, and just meeting people through people. And like for example, when I played at the Jazz Standard that year, Hebert was the bass player in the band, and he had been playing with Fred Hirsch at the Vanguard right before that. And Fred had asked him like what he was up to lately, and John told him he was playing the Standard with me, who was some new guy in town. And Fred likes new people, so he went over there, and I met him at the Standard, and then he called me for a weekend at the Jazz Standard to play with his band.
Oh, really? So oh, man. Oh, that's I didn't know.
Yeah, I love Fred, man. He's like a sweetheart.
I love Hebert. Talking about sweethearts.
Yeah, he's great too. Yeah. But Fred has always been really, really kind to me. And we also, I think, have a similar outlook, musically speaking. Like and also just personality wise, like I think we both kind of can be brutally honest about stuff. And so when we've talked in the past about musicians or gigs that we've each had, it's just a nice kind of way to communicate with each other that's a little unfiltered. And I love Fred. Yeah, he's an awesome person. So
did you guys ever record with Fred? No, right? Or you did?
No.
No, right?
No, there was a situation where we were going to do something for a record label like 3 or 4 years ago, a duo record, and that just fell through. So
that's a shame. Yeah, it would be fun.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Dry Bridge Road. You know, you have all these. I mean, that's how I discovered you. Of course, you know, I'm a guitarist. Years ago, I saw you played with Monder. Of course, you know, like every guitarist of my generation checked out Monder, right? And you know, how did you feel? Like, you know, you had like Frank Kimbrough and Ben Monder, Russ Johnson, the slightly older generation.
I'm sorry, I didn't even mention Frank. Wow,
Frank, yeah,
that's disrespectful of me. I'm sorry.
But how was it for you?
Incredible influence and a good friend.
Yeah.
How was it hanging with those guys? You mean?
I mean, especially like going into the studio, you being a band leader, and you know, acting as a band leader towards those cats. Like, I mean, how did you feel in that role, actually?
Cool. Yeah, everyone's. You know, most people are really cool, and I think that I'm like a relatively easygoing band leader.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I'm not like a hardcore, you know, things need to be a certain way, and like really restrict things musically, or I'm not demanding of my band members. You know, I don't tell them they need to dress a certain way, or, you know, I'm not like a, you know, and I don't rehearse, you know, it's like, so I think maybe it kind of just worked out because that was a great group of people on that record. And, I don't know, man, it's hard to explain, but all of those people, I just got lucky playing with them and meeting them. Like, there were people that I wanted to play with for years. I mean, I had been listening to Frank's records.
Oh man, yeah.
I heard him with Maria Schneider, and I heard him in Ben Allison's Medicine Wheel Band. And I loved his writing. I loved his playing. I thought it was really soulful and
Yeah.
just lyrical and deep in a number of ways. I've been checking out Ben's music for a very long time. Hebert, I'm trying to remember how I had got introduced to him.
He was quite new in
But
town back then, right?
he must have been, I guess. I mean, he's younger. He's maybe like mid 40s or late 40s.
Yeah,
Something like that. I don't know how old he is. But so I can't remember how I found out about John's music. Russ Johnson was on something also that I had heard. And so anyway, yeah, just I had discovered these people throughout the years of learning about music. Like I'm a big fan also of the music, I think, as most people are who play. And so these are just people that I thought would sound really great on my stuff. And John McNeil, who was helping me put the record together, confirmed that they're great people too, and would be easy to work with. So
yeah.
So, but yeah, they're all beautiful humans and easy to hang with.
Especially with Frank, you also connected. You did the duo records, right? Later, and you kind of really had a chemistry going on musically.
Well, I did a duo record with another Frank named Frank Carlberg.
Carlberg, yeah, I know Frank also. Yeah, sure, exactly.
Yeah. So we did a duo record years later, which I really am a fan of that recording too. It was done in this beautiful hall that sounds like nobody can sound bad in this hall. That's how good this hall sounds, So, yeah, Kimbrough and I did a lot of traveling together and playing together in other situations, and so.
I wanted to ask you, you know, lucky. Yeah, I mean, just the musicians you played with. It's like, especially the first record. It's just like, man, that's a killing band for a debut album. That's like. Whew.
Yeah, well, also, I mean, I just want to state that, like, I don't believe in like all-star type bands just to have like an all-star type band. The other thing is like, that's not necessarily an all-star. I mean, they're all people that I really love, and they have names for themselves and unique characters. I didn't go out and call Keith Jarrett and Jack DeJohnette and Dave Holland or some shit, so, or McCoy or that sort of like 80-year-old legend, and that's something that I also don't have a problem with if people do. A lot of people knock that. It's like, man, if you got the bread to go hire Keith or Matheny or whatever, hell yeah, you should, because you'll learn so much from hanging with them for a few hours, or getting to talk to them on the phone. So there's no problem with that either, but that wasn't my intention for this record. The point of it was I didn't want to hire people that I was in school with, and I had an in with somebody who lived in New York City and was friends with these people, and so I was able to do it in a way that I felt was musical and made sense.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
just to clarify.
No, but it's true. It's like all these guys, Monder and Frank Kimbrough, and they're really musicians in a sense, like that. All the musicians, all of us know them, of course, and what in a wider scale, I don't think Monder did I've talked to Ben, and I don't think he ever did like a European tour as a band leader, actually, like a 2-week tour, let's say, with his music, which is incredible, if you think about it. Or even Frank Kimbrough, I don't know if he has done many tours as a band leader in Europe, or like, but everyone knows them. I mean, at least jazz musicians I'm talking, and which in a way it's quite, that's how the business goes. But they're not on covers of Downbeat or whatever, or just something, but amazing players. I mean, for me, it's an all-star band what you had there. So anyway, but yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm grateful to have that experience, and was lucky, man. I mean, Anyway, enough said about that.
Yeah, definitely. Touring. I wanted to ask you, like, when was the first time you came to Europe as a band leader? And how was that organized, like, and your first experience in Europe touring?
That's a good question. The first tour I ever did outside of the country was with a guitarist and a singer. His name is Andre Matos, and her
Oh yeah,
name is
really?
Sarah Serpa. I don't know if you're
Really? Oh
familiar with
sure,
them.
man. Really? I didn't know that.
Um,
Oh.
and so that was in 2000, sometime in the, I don't know, maybe 2007, 2008, something like
Mm.
that.
Wow, okay.
And that was with their music. We went to, I think it was only in Portugal, maybe Portugal and Spain, something like
Mm.
that. And so they're awesome players and amazing people too. And so that was great. And then the tour I did after that, I don't know if this is correct, chronologically correct. I did a tour in Australia uh, with John Hebert and Matt Wilson.
Really?
Uh, I would think I was like 23 years old. So whenever the hell that was.
Wow.
I went to college with a woman named Sophie Bruce who booked the Melbourne Jazz Festival for a little bit. And so she was obviously familiar with my music because we knew each other, and asked me if I wanted to go play at the Melbourne Festival. And then I approached a booking agent who shall go unnamed because he's not a great human being, who I asked if he would book the rest of the tour around it. So he booked like I think it was 12 or 13 days of work,
Oh wow. Okay.
and it ended up being a disaster logistically. The tour was super fun. I love those guys. They're
Um,
unbelievable to tour with and play with, obviously. But the tour was really I got screwed big time by this booking agent,
mm.
um, who later on a couple years later got kind of ousted from the music scene, but because he screwed a lot of people. But that was the first tour I ever did, I think, as a band leader outside of the States. Um, After that, I had gone to Europe uh, a ton,
Mm.
especially Western Europe, Portugal, Spain, France, that region.
Mm.
Um, Sometimes 5, 10 times a year.
Oh wow. Okay.
Either like as a band leader or as a sideman or a collaborative thing. Did a lot of stuff with Massa, and
Yeah.
because he was living in Barcelona, and so he would set up things with Rob Garcia, drummer. Um, and we kind of had different groups. I did a tour with Perico Sambiat. I don't know if
Oh
you know him.
really? Yeah, sure, I know. Yeah.
We did a two
Really?
saxophone tour over there.
Wow.
Just a lot of random kind of things just to get over there and get the hell out of New York. um, so that was a lot of fun. That was sort of throughout my early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s. And then, and I've had, I don't know, probably a dozen booking agents since
Sure.
then. And now I'm with somebody and I'm pretty content with him. And so he's got me into some new areas that I wasn't doing earlier in my life. And so that's that. Yeah.
Yeah. The touring business. I think in the beginning, especially, just if you have like this positive zero as a band leader, then it's like, yeah, man, I did it.
The beginning, at any point in your life, I think you should be grateful if you don't lose money.
Yeah, yeah,
I
probably
mean,
true.
unless you're, yeah, I mean, unless you're hiring like, your barbecue buddies who aren't like, aren't like maybe the people that you really want to play with.
Yeah.
If you're hiring people you really want to play with, it sure seems like a really difficult, uh, it seems difficult to make
Oh,
any amount
yeah,
of
yeah.
money.
If you want
You
that, you
need the
pay them.
money.
Yeah. I mean, I have your music, like playing your music, and I don't know, you've written a lot of music through the years and extremely prolific composer. What's your progress there and process actually, like you sit down, you start writing, or like you have snippets of ideas, or like how do you do it?
Yeah, it depends on the project or where I'm at. Sometimes I have like a passion project that I want to write for, And so I concentrate on that, and that'll kind of dictate what my process is. So for example, I did a record a couple years ago called Preminger Plays Preminger. I did it for
Yeah,
Novell.
with Jason, right? Moran and
Jason Moran
yeah, yeah,
and Kim
Marcus.
and Marcus Gilmore.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that record, so I have a very distant relative named Otto Preminger, who's a film director, and in the 40s, 50s, 60s ish, and so I thought it would be fun. And there's a theme here. Like I like to pursue projects that I find to be fun and
Sure.
and motivating and inspiring. So I thought it would be inspiring to dig into his films and check out the film scores, and then have the record be half of the film scores, half of the theme songs from his film that I arranged them, and the other half of the record would be me kind of writing music to score a scene in different films of his. So for that, like I would sit here at my computer and watch the movie, and then make notes of my favorite scenes, and go back and sit at the piano, and maybe sketch something out, or pick up the horn and play a melody and build around that. And then the theme songs that I decided to arrange, I would probably sit at the piano. I would transcribe them, then sit at the piano, rework them, or whatever,
Yeah.
So that was, for example, that one. I did the same. It was the same kind of a thing. I just did a quartet record with Rob Garcia. We have a group called the Dead Composers Club, and we did Chopin's music before Kurt Rosenwinkel made his Chopin record.
Yeah, I saw it this year.
We did a Chopin record, and then we just recorded a record of Hildegard von Bingen's music. So it was sort of a similar thing. Transcribed a bunch of Hildegard stuff, reworked it, and so that was fun. That's with Kim and Gary Versace.
Oh wow, beautiful.
That was a lot of fun. And then there's other times where, like the first record I did for Crisscross, Jerry Teakins called me and he said, like, "Hey man, can you make a record for me in 3 weeks?" And I was like, all right.
Sure.
So I quickly wrote for that. And I just wrote on the horn primarily. Yeah. Around that time, I had somebody telling me that he was saying, "Noah, like, it doesn't seem like your music is very contemporary sounding. Like you're going to get pigeonholed as this person who's like old school only."
Interesting.
And so he kind of like dared me to make a record that was like a little more contemporary, whatever that means,
Sure.
So I was like, yeah, I am a fucking old school player. Like I love old school stuff, but I also like, I don't try to copy that. And I've studied everything, from blues music in the 20s to,
Sure.
I go and hear people that are playing today, and listen to them and transcribe everybody,
Yeah.
and everybody. So, anyway, what the hell were we just talking about that record? Oh, just different records.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and yeah. So the situation kind of, it depends on the situation.
I mean, like, let's say I listened the other day, like Hamburg, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, let's say, this kind of angular unisono fast lines. How do you compose something like that? Piano or saxophone, and how do you arrange it?
Well, I was in Hamburg when I wrote that, and I was playing with the NDR big band, and that I was writing. I remember sitting in the big hall or the big room that they rehearse in before rehearsal, and just like thinking about the situation I was in while I was there, and just kind of was playing some. I mean, I record everything I do. I mean, I don't know if you can see this, but like, for example, like, you can't see that.
Oh yeah. The voice. Yeah. Sure. Wow.
There's
like ideas.
Years of voice memos that I have. So I record everything. I really record everything. Gigs to just playing at home to sitting on the piano, working some stuff out. Just like sitting, practicing like, these stupid instruments and like trying to listen to my tone and so I was sitting in Hamburg about to play with those guys and just had a certain feeling in my head and just came up with those lines on the horn.
Oh, okay.
And kind of piecing them together in a way that I thought sounded logical and wrote a counter line for Kim. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff has been written on the horn and then kind of reworked depending on what Kim tells me. I mean, I'm not a bass player. I don't know how to play bass or understand the instrument, but to a degree enough, like where I can write well enough without consulting with a bassist a lot of time. I mean, unless it's just like some B flat sounding shit where you just know that works. But just in terms of like maybe some higher register stuff, just how the fingerboard works. So I usually consult with Kim. I'll send him a picture of what I'm working on or a MIDI thing or whatever or recording you playing. So that was that tune, for example.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that one. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, it sounds really modern. It's funny because you mentioned, I mean, whatever modern means, you know what I mean? Like, but it's like, it's like you put it on. It's like, man, wow, that's hip. That's cool,
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of, weird lines with tenor and guitar doubling it and, with some time, no changes blowing. I mean, it sounds modern, I guess.
I guess, yeah. I mean, exactly. That's the debate, what's modern, what's contemporary or whatever. I mean,
that was a record. What the hell record is that from? Genuinity, one of those records. I think that's the
Contentment. No.
Contentment?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That was another record, right? Contentment, because that was another one where Niels Winter, who owns Steeplechase, asked me to do a record for him in a short amount of time.
Okay.
And so I needed to cough up a bunch of music quick, and so I just kind of threw, there's records you make because they're passion projects, and it doesn't matter if it gets on a record label or you release it yourself. And then there's records that you make for the bread because a record label asks you to do it,
sure.
and so there's different situations. Like another record I made called Zigsaw, the music of Steve Lampert.
Yeah.
That I've self-released, and that was a mega passion project. Steve's one of my closest people, and I think he's as high a level of musician as they come. And so that was amazing for me to have him compose this piece for me and an ensemble that I put together.
Yeah.
And for me to be featured on that. So that was like that took 3 years to work through.
Wow. Man, okay.
So anyway, every record's kind of different.
Sure. Yeah.
The stuff with Kim, that this duo record.
Thunda, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
That was another type of thing where like computers like always scared me and stuff. They still do, and all this like music production shit. But over the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic, I like didn't want to leave the house. I still don't want to leave the house, but so I wanted to figure out how to get into like home recording.
Yep.
And Kim was also he had been doing it for a little bit. He did a record in 2015 that he recorded at home. But he wanted to kind of get a little more into it. And then so we kind of floated this idea of passing music back and forth to each other and just take our time doing it and just come up with like the just craziest shit, So I would start with an idea, send it to him, sometimes fully formed, sometimes just maybe like 20, 30 seconds, and send it to him, and he would add to it either layers or more to it, or and send it back. And sometimes it was just a couple times back and forth. Sometimes we worked on it for like 8-9 months.
Sure.
And that was one of the most rewarding projects I've ever worked on, because I'm so happy with the result. And I love Kim musically and personally. And so we're working on another one right now. We got a grant, which is kind of nice.
Oh, really? Oh, fantastic, man.
And
Yeah.
so we got another Thunda 2.0 record coming out now. So we're working on, come out next year.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, that's what I wanted to ask you. You know, like you have this trio record coming out on Crisscross, and you mentioned now a duo with Kim, and you know what else is on the agenda? I mean, like, are you planning some touring, coming to Europe, or writing some new music, or?
Yeah. So in terms of like sitting at the piano and writing music, I need a break, so that's not really happening too much. But I'm doing a lot of recording. So I'm doing this thing with Kim, which is time consuming and a priority
sure.
for me. I'm also working on a rap record with an amazing rapper named Anthony Thomas. He goes by Tone 860.
Okay.
Tone 860. We grew up together we went to high school together. He lives out in Colorado, and he's killer.
To check it out. Okay.
And so we have this trio where Steve Lampert is creating the grooves, the electronic beats, and sends all these different beat ideas to me, and then I take certain ones, rework them, and kind of form like a track, and I add bass line grooves and different kind of like synthesizer sounds and different shit, and I record horns, saxophones, flute, clarinet, all the shit. And then when I have something that's kind of like cohesive enough, I send it over to Tone, and he raps on that.
Wow.
And so we've got a couple of them done, and shit is grooving. I think it sounds killer.
That's amazing, man. I wouldn't expect that. That's gonna be
It's I mean, I'm influenced heavily by like Dr. Dre and Talib Kweli, and I love Jay-Z's voice, and I mean that Jay-Z with the Roots. I don't know if you know that record.
I mean, I love the Roots. I'm a huge Roots fan, and Tribe Called Quest and all that stuff, and De La Soul. I love that, man. That's like cool.
There's that MTV Unplugged recording of Jay-Z with the Roots.
Really, I have to check it out. Okay.
Wow. And it sounds killer. So for me, like, I want to make a rap record. I don't know if you've heard Steve Lehman's project.
Yeah. It's
his new one that came out maybe a week ago.
Yeah.
Killer. But that's not what I'm going for personally. I want something that's more old school, but has that I want something that's really like accessible, but not like Kamasi Washington accessible or Grace Kelly accessible. I want something that's like
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
Wow.
Dr. Jazz.